Things have gone from bad to worse for the Philadelphia Phillies, who've now dropped 6 consecutive games and lost 13 of their last 17. Garrett Stubbs has looked like the team's most reliable reliever, and Bryce Harper continues to struggle at the plate, snapping his 1 for 34 streak, but still looking like a far cry from the MVP candidate the Phillies need him to be. I want to discuss about why my panic meter has moved a little bit, why this team continues to get creative in the ways that they are losing games, and really, are they the team that we thought they are to this point? Now, I understand that baseball is a marathon and not a sprint. You're going to have your ups and downs throughout the season. There's no doubt about that. But it's pretty clear that this low point is a little bit different than just some struggles. That the way that they're losing games in different ways, and as I did acknowledge that they have lost 6 in a row at this point, before that their previous losing streak on the season was just 3. And to take a peek at this full schedule here, it's rough. Getting swept by the Yankees, losing 2 straight to the Seattle Mariners. This is their 6th straight series that they have lost now that they've just dropped 2 of 3. And the ways that they are losing game are really what is frustrating to me. It is a process over result type thing to me, that this isn't just a factor of coming up short in games that you fight hard and that team is just a little better. This is situations like being up 5-0 heading into the 6th inning last night with Jeff Hoffman coming in and you finally let it collapse. Walking in a walk-off for the opposing team as Carlos Estevez did last night. Or straight up not showing up. Tyler Phillips giving up 8 runs in less than 2 innings pitched the game before. Or getting absolutely demolished by the Yankees in your home crowd where you hear the New York chants in the stadium. That kind of stuff just cannot happen. And this is not a blame the fans thing. It's tough to get fired up when you're down 14-4 in there. There's nothing wrong with that from a fan perspective. But there is something wrong with what is happening on the field here. And it is clear that the team is aware of it. We did get this quote from JT Realmuto following the game saying, quote, "We are finding multiple ways to lose games. It's something different every night. We want this streak to be over. We have too much talent on this team. We have the right guys in the clubhouse to withstand something like this." And while I do hope that is all true, that they do have the, inner, strength to muster up and come back out of this, we've seen them overcome some turbulent waters before. This is tough, man. This is one of those situations. This is a stretch where it can break a sports team. That I've seen a lot of the comparisons to the Eagles falling apart. I'm not ready to be there yet, but it does feel like we're not going to know those answers yet. And the reality is that there's a growing realization or concern that maybe this team is not as built for it as we thought we were. I'm not going to bring up the, playing easier teams in the first half as was hammered home as a message to start the season, because I do think that was lame. You got to beat who's in front of you, and that's exactly what this team did. But as they're going through this tougher stretch of baseball, they simply have not risen to the occasion. And there's also a great deal of confidence from Rob Thomson here, who said, quote, "The team is just too talented for this to continue." And while I hope that is the case, we need to see it to be the case. That guys like Bryce Harper just simply need to play better. Carlos Estevez cannot be the guy walking in game-winning runs. As I mentioned with Harper, a guy that simply has not looked like the MVP candidate that he did at this point in time. He did snap the 1 for 34 streak that he entered heading into last night. That was nice to see, and it is something to build off, but it does feel like it can't just be him, and it still were moments where you need more from Bryce, that he's got to find a way to get back to himself. Baseball is such a mental sport, and the more that these struggles continue to linger for each of these guys, the Trey Turners, the Nick Castellanos, JT Realmuto himself has to look in the mirror for how he's been hitting at the plate recently. There's a lot that just needs to flip. These guys have to find a way to get better, and the unfortunate part is we're past the All-Star break. There isn't that little unplug, and there really wasn't at the time because of how many Phillies were involved in that game. We're in the meat of the season. You're kind of heading into the home stretch, and the reality is the playoffs are not moving. The deadline, the final push for the season is not stopping for anybody, so the Phillies have to find it within themselves to find a way to switch things. Now, Rob Thomson, I've seen a lot of critiques for, and I do hear it. It has not perfect. There's no doubt that he hasn't pulled quite the right strings on this team, but I think it's a little unfair to characterize him as a guy that is the problem here. Am I frustrated with his bullpen decisions and management sometimes? For sure. Are the lineups a little strange to me at times? Absolutely. But the reality is that none of these guys are playing well enough, and it's tough to do. Now, another critique that I've seen has been the umpire side of things. And believe me, I get it. With Carlos Estevez last night walking a guy in, that was frustrating, and particularly waiting until 1 a.m. in the morning out here in the West Coast or on the East Coast to watch the ending of that game. Look at that pitch. That would have been strike 3. Instead, this pushed the count to 2-2, and ultimately he walked in that batter here. And this tweet fully saying that umpire Ryan Willis called a ball on a pitch that should have sent the game to the 11th inning. A couple of pitches later, the Phillies walked in the winning run. Willis missed 21 calls on the game, and 13 went against the Phillies. As much I would love to be blame the umpire guy, when you're up 5-0 in a game heading into a bullpen, you simply got to win it. And for that specific, that pitch right there, yes, it should have been a strike. I do think it was an inconsistent strike zone for most of the night. JT Realmuto also did a horrible job of framing that pitch, and unfortunately, I kind of put that on him. That yes, obviously, if the ball goes across the plate, where it goes across the plate, you should call it as is. But umpires are reading the way the catcher fields the ball and that type of thing. And JT dropped right into the dirt when he caught that one, which you're never gonna get the strike call when that is the case. So I get the frustration, but the reality is this Phillies team just needs to find ways to win. And I mentioned Jeff Hoffman, who has been arguably the best reliever in baseball this year, and he had his worst performance ever as a Philly in that particular opportunity. That was the first time since April 8th that Jeff Hoffman allowed multiple earned runs. It's the first earned run that he's given up since June 27th. Everyone is due for a bad night. His just happened to come during this stretch of the imaginable there. So for Hoffman, I don't have my doubts on him in the long term, but it is rare to see him get whacked up like that. And I will say that that's been kind of a trend for this Phillies team. That Tyler Phillips outing, those home runs were absolutely mashed. We're not talking about ones just going over the fence or a guy getting a hold of one. We're talking 460 feet over the fence, deeper in the stadium than I've seen them. And Phillips is going to be an interesting story specifically for how much he's able to stick. We will see a lot about his mental resiliency the next time that he steps on the bump and shows what he's got. We still, obviously a great story. The local kid getting the opportunity. He's pitched very well, had the complete game shutout and a couple other really strong outings for this team. But they've got to find a buckle down and find a way, everyone, top to bottom on this team, that this is one of those stretches where we can't even get into the inside baseball decisions of, change the lineup here, figure out this pitching structure here. The reality is every single player in this locker room must be looking themselves in the mirror and figuring out what can I do better, where am I messing up, get my mentals right, and get back out there. That baseball is such a mental sport, and I do think things are compounding on this team. That I'm seeing the reports of them taking longer batting practice and them trying to work through it. But the results are not showing, and I do think, I don't know the fix from here. I think we're going to really learn what this Phillies team is over the next couple weeks. If they're not able to stop the bleeding, turn things around, and look at least a little bit like the dominant team that they were to start this year, this season may be as good as over. And no, I'm not saying that going to be bad. They're still going to be likely the 1 seed, or at least win the NL East. They're still in a great spot, still built up. That was one of the key reasons for the hot start. But the reality is, I feel so much less confident about what this team could be come playoff time. I know they're battle tested. We've seen them rise to the occasions before, but this team looks broken. And for Rob Thomson specifically, when I did see this pitch go through last night, that yes, I still stand by my JT Realmuto should have framed that better. And in reality, you should have won the game otherwise. But I would have loved to have seen an opportunity for Rob Thomson to really give it to the umpire last night. Sometimes that changes things. That I do think managers are good for winning a handful of games throughout the season, and we haven't really seen that from Rob this year. With the management, with making things happen, I would have loved to have seen an opportunity where he just shows this team, we need this fire back. Let me get mad about this. Let me get thrown out of a game in the 10th inning. And now, does it change everything that they obviously lost that game 2 pitches later? No, nothing really changed in the grand sphere of things. But I would have loved to see some fire out of Topper. And I do think that could have been something that could have been the match that starts a fire on this Phillies team. Ultimately, there's a lot more problems than just Rob Thomson. It's every single player within this Phillies roster right now. Everyone on both sides, at the plate, all the pitchers, everybody's got some things to fix. So we need to see the turnaround fast. They'll be back in action against the Seattle Mariners today. I do need to see a win. That this team needs to put one in the win column. As bad as any team that I can really picture, and as bad as they've needed to for any portion of this year. So we'll see how things shake out from here, but I'm certainly have my hand hovering over the panic button at this point in time. It looks like some really bad baseball. It just has to be better, and we need to see it soon. So let me know if you guys are with me in the comments. Are you as concerned as I am? Am I being over the top with my panic? But I can't argue. It looks rough on this team, and I need to see some changes soon. Also, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you're new to the channel, or if you have not already. Drop a like on this video, and I'll be talking with you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.